tonight. We'd like to welcome everybody tonight listening to our YouTube, via YouTube, especially those from Christ Central Church. We're here live every Tuesday night at 7 o'clock. This is our Overcomers Living Free meeting. Usually the YouTube is not available until around 9:30. We appreciate you joining us every week. We've been talking about the Holy Hill. Tonight we're going to be talking about part 3. We're going to call it Walks, Works, and Speaks. Walks, Works, and Speaks. Holy Hill is a series that I've been doing about certain individuals who want to go deeper with the Lord. How many of you want to go deeper into things of the Lord? The Christian life is constantly about a choice that we have about whether we're going to go deeper and deeper into the things of God, into the narrow gate, or we're just going to go different. These lessons are for the remnant, which is a small group of individuals within the church. I call it the true church, that are serious, that want to go to a new level and that are intentional about it. People that want to experience a greater level of power, a greater level of anointing, a greater level of favor, a greater level of authority, and greater level of God's presence. All those things that I just mentioned are things that we can experience when we get to the holy hill of the Lord. Psalms 24, 3 through 4. Psalms 15, 1 and 2 have been the go-to verses about the holy hill. Both of them are kind of alike. Both of them come from David. Psalms 24, verse 3 says, "Who may ascend to the hill of the Lord?" Amplified says, "Who may ascend to the mountain of the Lord? Or who may stand in his holy place?" Psalms 15, 1 through 2 says, "O Lord, who may abide in your tent? Or who may dwell in your holy hill?" The word there means to tabernacle. So it refers to a person, a specific type of people that get to ascend to God's mountain or God's hill or God's holy hill. It's His hill. It's a place where progressively we can grow to if we'll keep going deeper into things of God, and there we'll be able to dwell in His tent. We'll be able to tabernacle and dwell with Him permanently. I don't know about you, but I can think of a lot of places, but I can't think about any place that I would rather hang out than on God's holy hill, to tabernacle permanently and hang out with Him and to hang out in His tent. Well, God's holy hill is not like the king of the hill that we used to play when we were kids, where only one strong, aggressive person could kind of get there. But God's holy hill is available to anybody. But it is for a select group. It's reserved for a certain group of people that are willing to pay the price, to be intentional and do whatever it takes to go there, because it's progressive. It takes a long time of hard work and diligence and being intentional to get there. But once we get there, it's even harder to stay there and to dwell permanently because of our nature. We tend to be deeper one minute, and the next minute we want to go different, and consistency is one of the hardest things of the Christian life. It's making a habit and a practice and a discipline about godliness, about the deeper things of God. So God is searching tonight, looking for people that are passionate pursuers of His presence, people that want to go deeper, people that want to go to the holy hill, and people that are willing to pay any price that it takes to get there. Turn with me tonight to 1 Timothy 4, 7 through 8. We're going to talk tonight about some of the prerequisites, or the disciplines I would call them, or the practices of someone who wants to live on a holy hill, someone who wants to be a godly man or a godly woman. First Timothy 4:7-8, Paul is talking to a young Timothy. Timothy was a man that was caught up with a lot of fears, and he was young and had a lot of pressure with people. He was the pastor of the fastest growing church at the time there, the church of Ephesus. Paul is kind of mentoring a young Timothy. Paul's been around the block. He's been doing this thing a long time, and he's kind of taken Timothy under his wing, and he's investing in Timothy. He tells him all kinds of things about fighting a good fight of faith, and about having a clear conscience, and about dealing with the spirit of fear and timidity. And here he says in verse 7, he says, have nothing to do with worldly fables, fit only for women. The Amplified says, refuse and avoid irreverent legends, profane, impure, and godless fictions. Basically, what Paul is telling Timothy is don't have anything to do with this worldly stuff, this worldly talk. One of the things we don't allow in our program at Liberty Lodge, we don't allow what we call war story. And that means talking about the old worldly ways and the things we used to be involved in because they're worthless. It's a waste of time. There's nothing about those things that can promote godliness in our lives. So Paul says, you're going to have a lot of busybodies. You're going to have a lot of people that you get around that want to talk worldly things, and you're going to have to be intentional. You're going to have to make a decision not to be a part of those kind of things. But rather than get caught up in the worldly things, rather than do that, he says on the other hand, or rather than, discipline yourself for the purpose of godliness. The Amplified says to train yourself toward godliness or piety, being godlike, having a moral code and a high ethical standard. Keep yourself spiritually fit. For bodily discipline is only of little profit, but godliness is profitable for all things, since it holds promise for the present life and also for the life to come. Now the word train here, or the word discipline here, is our word gymnazo. It's where we get our word gymnasium. It refers to the ancient Olympic Games. This is where Paul's thinking is. He's thinking about these Olympic Games, these ancient games that they used to play that were very popular back then. They were very intense. When people went into the Olympic Games, those games, when they entered into those contests, sometimes they were life and death. If you lose, you could be killed for it. They didn't play. And so when they went into these games, they were very serious. They were very intentional. They were willing to get up early in the morning, stay up late, discipline themselves, train themselves, and make it a habit and a practice of being very, very intentional because of the seriousness of what they were doing. The actual word gymnasio means to train or to train naked. These people were so serious that they would actually take their garments and pull them up and wrap them and run like that, or sometimes they would even throw them off altogether and actually run the race naked because they didn't want anything to impair their ability to win that race. They didn't want anything to interfere with that. So Paul says this kind of discipline, this gymnazo, this kind of physical training is very, very good, but it's temporal. It has a benefit for this life, but spiritual discipline, exercising and training and disciplining yourself for godliness, getting into the Lord's gym, not only has temporal benefits for this life, but it also has an eternal value in heaven. I go to the gym, and I'm not that good at it anymore, especially right now, but I go and I try to work on my physical body because it's important that I stay physically healthy, because my body's the only one I have, and if I want to continue to grow and to be able to accomplish things, I need to take care of my physical body. But as a pastor, not only should I be taking care of my physical body, my external body, but I should be taking care of my soul, my spiritual body. So just like I go to the gym and I have certain training exercises, I do curls, I do military presses, I run, I do different disciplines to train myself physically in the spiritual realm, I need to be training myself spiritually with certain spiritual disciplines, reading the Word, journaling, prayer, service, or some of them. In the same way that I do my physical body, I need to be training my soul and take care of my soul, because my soul is beneficial now, but it's going to have eternal value in the life to come. So if we're going to get to the holy hill, in the same way that we journal, read the Word, there's other practices, there's other disciplines, there's other prerequisites, things that were required of us that will help us be godly, that will allow us to get to the holy hill and to be able to stay on the holy hill and live a godly life. How many of you want to live a godly life tonight? So the first two come out of Psalms 24, 3 through 4. We talked about those last time. Having clean hands and a pure heart. And tonight we're going to talk about three more. They come out of Psalms 15, 1 through 2. One is going to be walks with integrity, works righteousness, and speaks truth in his heart. So we're going to take these one by one tonight. The first one is walks with integrity. Psalms 26, 1 through 3. One of the habits of becoming into the holy hill is to walk with integrity. The Amplified says, walk uprightly and blamelessly. Uprightly means to be above reproach, and blamelessly means to be without accusation or without sin. David in Psalms 26, 1 through 3, we don't know what's going on, but apparently somebody's been accusing him of certain things. And he says, vindicate me. Vindicate means, jump in there, Lord, and clear my name. Let me be acquitted. Whatever the accusations they're having, Lord, vindicate me. You jump in there and be my lawyer. Take care of this mess. It's a bunch of hogwash. You vindicate me. So vindicate me, O Lord. He says, for I have walked in my integrity. He's asking the Lord to vindicate him, not because of that he's guilty of anything, but he says, vindicate me based upon, or because I have been a man who has walked in my integrity. So he's saying, Lord, I'm asking you to vindicate my name because I'm a man of God. I'm a man of integrity, and I walk that way. He goes on and says, I have trusted in the Lord without wavering. And he says, examine me, Lord. Try me. Test my mind. Test my heart. He's asking God to come down into his heart and do a moral and spiritual examination about where he is in his moral goodness and his ethical practices and his standards, the way he lives by. In other words, he's saying, examine my walk. When I was a young Christian, I used to hear it all the time. People would say, how's your walk going? They weren't referring to how my walking crooked or how my legs doing. My walk was my relationship with the God. It was my relationship with the Lord. Am I walking on a straight and narrow path? Am I walking above reproach? Am I walking blamelessly? Am I walking uprightly? How are you doing in that? And it was a challenge. It was a good question for us to look at ourselves and say, yeah, how are you doing? It was holding each other accountable. So David says, vindicate me, O Lord, because I have walked in my integrity. I have trusted in you without wavering. Examine me, test my mind, test my heart, for your loving kindness is before my eyes, and I have walked in your truth. The word means I have walked consistently and faithfully and fully in your truth. Genesis 5:22. Don't need to turn there, just go with me. Genesis 5:22 talks about a man named Enoch. And it says in the history there, it's talking about these different people, and it includes Enoch in the history books and the genealogic patterns there of a lot of different people. And he says Enoch was a man that walked with God 300 years. And he goes on to say in verse 24 that Enoch walked with God. And it says he was and then he was not, because God took him. Wow. You know, it's talking about this man that had a relationship with God that had been established for 300 years. And for whatever reason, the person that wrote this, I guess it's Moses in Genesis, and he's bragging or talking about this great man named Enoch, and the reason he's included in there is because of his performance. There was something about Enoch that Enoch did habitually and consistently. And it says that he walked with God, and God saw him, and he was one minute, and the next minute he was taken. He was right before their eyes. Just like that, God decided, whatever reason, that God took him. And I believe if we look at the verse before that, it will reveal to us why God took him. It says that he walked with God for 300 years. You know, it doesn't say, well, he did good for 10 years of his life, and then he backslid for 20, and then he walked for another. It says, no, all it says is that he walked consistently and habitually for 300 years, not just Mondays, Wednesdays, Fridays, paydays, and holidays, when it was convenient or when it was favorable. But he had a consistent, steady walk. He didn't deviate one day here. He didn't turn around and quit God here. No, it says he walked with God. So here God is, and here Enoch is, and he just walked right along. God stepped here, he stepped with God. God stepped here, he stepped with here. He walked with God. What an easy life. But for whatever reason, he walked consistently and habitually with God. He became God's friend, so much so that when God observed this, he said, not only do I want this guy, but I want him with me. God decided he was one minute, and the next minute he said, I want this guy all for myself. And it says God took him. He was one of the few people in the Bible that never died, he just vanished. He was there one minute, the next he was in the presence of the Lord, all because God wanted him. Talk about living on a holy hill. Noah was another man. I believe it's Genesis 6:9. Noah found favor in the eyes of God. How would you like to find favor in God's eyes? God's eyes says, that's my boy. That's the apple of my eye. In God's eyes. The way God looked upon him, he found favor. And just, he was approved. The word found there means, he proved himself, and as a result of that, he found that favor, that blessing from God on his life. And it says that he was a righteous man and he was blameless in his time. If you go back to Genesis, you'll realize that Noah lived in a time where everybody was doing what was right in their own eyes. Everything everybody did was evil all the time. You talk about we're in a difficult world today, but he lived in a world where nobody was righteous. Nobody was blameless. Nobody was doing the right thing. Nobody cared about God. Nobody had a respect for God. He lived in a world where he was the only one that was found righteous, him and his family. God destroyed the whole world and took him and kept him because he walked blamelessly before the Lord, and he walked with God. So the word walk I believe that's how you spell it, perpeteo. It refers to our conduct, our behavior, it's how we live our life. It refers to the environment that we have chosen to live in. It refers to a circle and a dot. You've kind of drawn a circle. How you want to conduct yourself, how you want to behave, how you want to live your life, your ethical code or the moral standard, the way, the precepts, the commands, the laws. You made a decision how you want to live your life. It refers to a big, huge area where you survey it off and you make a decision to mark off this. In other words, you've got all these other people out here that live their life in their own way. You've observed, you've recognized, you've evaluated life and all the other environments that people, you watched how people walk, how they talk, their behavior, their code, how they order their life, and you made a decision as far as me and my house, this is the way I'm going to live my life, and you mark off a certain area, and you live in that area, you frequent it, you habit it. It refers to drawing a circle, standing in that circle, saying, as far as me and my life, this is the conduct, this is the behavior, this is how I'm going to live my life, and I'm going to get into a groove. It means to get into a groove and a habit and a pattern and stay there. It also refers to ordering your conduct because it takes into consideration that sometimes I deviate. Sometimes I'm not walking at the foot of the cross. Sometimes I'm not being sneaky queen. Sometimes I'm not doing the things I need to be. So I have to order my behavior back over into the fear that I've set up for my life. And then we walk there habitually, consistently. So a person that wants to experience God's power, God's presence, His authority, His favor, and His greater anointing has to have a walk, a choice where He's ordered his life, and he walks within that sphere blamelessly. That means he adheres to, he keeps his own standards, his own principles, and he walks habitually as far as his choice in his life. And if he were to get out, then he orders behavior, get back in line with the way that I've decided to live. So a man that lives on the holy hill has made a decision to walk or perpeteo his life, to order his conduct, behavior in the area of integrity. Now your character is who you are in your journey with the Lord, as far as your soul is your character. Okay? People out there are characters. They're shifted. I was a character once. But because I become a Christian, now I want to be a man of character. I want to be a man of integrity. Character is where I'm at in that journey. It's how much I've worked out my issues. It's how much I've developed soul care. It's where I'm at in my spiritual journey. The true me, it's where I'm really at. It's not where I want you to think I am or where I think I am. It's where God says I am. It's the real me. It's who I really, really am. It's my heart. So that is where it is. Now, I cannot be where I need to be in my character yet because I'm still a work in progress. Are you with me tonight? We're all a work in progress. But integrity is more about the choices that I make. I may not be somewhere in my character, for example. I may not feel like paying my taxes or doing the right thing, but either way, integrity is making the choice to do the right thing despite what you see, feel, and think. It's about wearing big boy pants and making the right decisions. Integrity is what you do when no one else is looking. You may be in a hotel room and by yourself, and you might be having some type of a lust attack. You're not there in your character yet. You know it's not the right thing to do, but you choose not to turn that TV on, or you choose not to go to certain channels that you know, even though nobody's looking. It's a choice you make between you because you want to walk with integrity. It's the choices you make when you've made some money here on the side, you've done some things here, and you could get away with not paying on taxes, but you know you worked for that, somebody paid for you for that, and you should claim it on your taxes. Integrity is when you have opportunities to do some things that aren't right for your own advantage, but you choose not to because it's not the moral and ethical standard that you chose to live by, and it's not God's standard. Now, integrity is defined as the quality of being and having moral values or principles, or having a strong moral compass. In other words, your compass, it's set on God's standard, God's ethics, and you model your life by, you let Him be your compass. You let Him be your lighthouse. You let Him determine it. So when your compass goes over here, you line up that compass with what you think is what God wants of you, His integrity. It's the character quality of aligning yourself, your true self, with your highest values that you believe are best for your life. And then you integrate those principles into your life. Ephesians 4:1 says that Paul says in 4:1, as a prisoner of the Lord, I implore you to walk in a manner worthy of the Lord. There's our word, peripateo. To lead a life worthy of the Lord. Colossians 1:10 says to walk in a manner worthy of the Lord, to please Him in respects, bearing fruit in every good work, and increasing in the knowledge of God. So a man who lives on the holy will is a man who walks consistently, steadfastly, as a habit of practice in his integrity. He makes the choices that he needs to when he needs to do it. Number 2 is a man that works righteousness. I like my new board up here. Here we have 2 words. He works righteousness. The word works is the Greek word phrogon. It means to do, it means action. Means putting feet to your faith, practicing what you're preaching, not walking yourself and talking noise, but you act upon what you're talking. It means to labor. It means to take an active participation in something. We know you go to AA meetings, and one of the little slogans they have there is keep coming back. It works if you work it. What they're saying, you can't just keep coming. That's not going to change it. But if you keep coming back week after week, because it works if you work it. What is it? It refers to the program of AA. We have 12 steps for Christians here that are very similar to that. And we believe in working those steps. People say, how did you relapse? How do you do that? And they say, well, I didn't work the steps. And they say, well, you got to work the steps. We have a teaching in our program called the difference between attending a program versus working a program. It's easy to come here for 8 months and be court-ordered and be in the program and comply and do what you need to do to stay on the radar, get your diploma, graduate, but nothing's changed. You've not worked nothing. And so you're wasting your time. So this is why we take the time to preach. You can attend a program or you can jump in there and work the program. You can dive into your journaling, dive into your DMI, dive into your Bible study. You can get prayer, you can ask questions, you can get counseling, you can work your program. So a man that lives on the holy here works his program. Well, what kind of program? Let's look at Matthew 6:33. Matthew 6:33, Jesus says, but seek first the kingdom of God and His righteousness. The word is dokasoni. And all these things will be added unto. The Amplified says, aim at, strive, make first priority of your life to seek His kingdom and His righteousness, or His dokasoni, or His way of being right. The word dokasoni is the word justice. It comes from the word to be innocent, or to be correct, or to be accurate. It's the word for right wiseness. It's the character quality or trait of someone who is being just and right, innocent, or correct. Basically, it refers to not our righteousness, but God's righteousness, His moral code, and His ethical standard. We know it's salvation. The minute I accept Jesus Christ, I'm declared in right standing. And I've been justified and I've been imputed His righteousness. I can't be any more right. I can't be any more accurate, more just, more correct than I am right now. I inherit His righteousness. How many know God is righteous? He's just. He's correct. He's absolutely moral and ethical in everything He does. He's above reproach. He's blameless in everything He does. Now, the righteousness, what we're talking about here, includes that, but this is not talking about our positional righteousness. This is talking about an experiential righteousness. I love a teaching I saw one time. Got the name of that guy. But anyway, he says that, we're all as filthy rags. We're unrighteousness. We're unrighteous. Nothing we can do. We're headed to hell. But the moment we get born again, God declares us in right standing with God, and God imputes His righteousness to us, and He covers us with His righteousness. So I'm justified and I'm declared in right standing with Him because I have His robe of righteousness. Doesn't mean that I'm righteous under here. It just means that I'm imputed His righteousness. I've been declared in right standing just as though I've never sinned, and I'm going to heaven. That's my position. But His righteousness, once it's imputed, that righteousness has to be worked into us. So positionally I'm in right standing, but that's His part. But my part is experiential righteousness, which is the word for sanctification and transformation. So His job is to impute it to me, and then my job is to work that righteousness, to work the program, to deal with my attitudes, to do my DMI, to do my journaling, to get my prayer, and to do the habits and the disciplines that will make me truly morally good. So I'm declared in right standing, but then I want to become truly moral good, not just externally. That's good, but I want to be truly morally good on the inside. Jesus said in Matthew 5:20, He said, I say to you, Pharisees, unless your righteousness or your dokasoni, you get positionally made right standing, but here He's talking about unless your inward man, your true inner moral goodness exceeds that of the Pharisees, you're not going to ever get into the kingdom of heaven. So here He says, yes, you have to have imputed righteousness, but you also have to have imparted righteousness, which means it's worked into you. So He told the Pharisees, your righteousness is not measuring up to God's righteousness. Matthew 23:25-28, He says, woe to you scribes and Pharisees, you hypocrites. Hypocrites are people on the phony. They act one way in front of the public, but in closed doors, in reality, on the inside, they were still very, very corrupt. They were phony. They were play actors. They were pretenders. So Jesus goes right after them and says, you're hypocrites. You act one way in public. You act all holy. You tithe. You do these things. But inwardly, He says, you blind. He says, you clean the outside of the cup. You look good. But inside, you're still full of robbery and self-indulgence. He says, you blind Pharisees, first clean the inside of the cup of the dish, so that then the outside may also become clean. So He says, quit focusing on being externally good, but start focusing on being internally good. If you clean up the inside and get internally good, and externally you're going to be good too. He says, woe to you scribes and Pharisees, for you like whitewashed tombs, which on the outside you appear beautiful, but inside you're full of dead men's bones and uncleanness. So you too outwardly appear righteous to men, but inwardly you are full of hypocrisy and lawlessness. So what He says right there is what the Pharisees were, they were self-righteous. They looked good on paper, but inward, God knew the true inner heart. God knows the true heart. He knows the inward. He knew where they were at truly in their spiritual progress on the inside. And He says, you're totally hypocrites. You got everything going on the outside. You got a good game, but you got nothing going on the inside. To start focusing now on the inside and try to get His true righteousness, a righteousness that comes from Him, that takes responsibility and works that righteousness into you. And then now you can get into heaven. So what's more important, that we appear righteous or we truly be good righteousness? So Jesus says here, if you want to be on the holy hill, you need to be working, progressively working towards developing His righteousness in you. You're righteous, you're in right standing, but you need to be actively taking ownership and allowing that righteousness to work itself dokosoni inside you. Last but not least, a person that lives on the holy hill speaks truth in his heart. The person who speaks truth in his life is honest and is a man of integrity. How many have ever been dishonest and deceitful and had no integrity and no character? We know how to do it wrong, don't we? Well, this here talks about learning to do it right. It not only is talking here about learning to talk about doing that, but it's about truly being honest on the inside in such a way that God knows it, and that you know it, and that everybody else knows it. Psalms 51:6. It's a story about David. You know, David at one time was known as a man after God's heart. God looked at him and said, man, he's a man that's after my heart. That means David at one time was actively working and pursuing being an honest man, a man of integrity, a man above board with no deceit in his life. His heart was such that God said, man, that's a guy that's after my very own heart. And that's who he was. And this is why he was anointed king. But we know as he got further along in his life, he got spiritually lazy. He wasn't out to war when kings should have been out there. He quit working his program. He quit doing the things that he needed to be doing. For whatever reason, we know he lusted after Bathsheba. He took Bathsheba, had a sexual relationship with her, committed adultery. Then he tried to have her husband killed so that he wouldn't find out about it. Then they had a baby, and God took the baby. And basically, if you read between the lines, you'll find out David went a whole year living a lie, being deceitful. He tried to cover up this. He never confessed it. He never came clean. Here he's the king of Israel. He had a baby out of wedlock and took another wife, had adultery, sinned against his nation, sinned against his God, had him murdered. And here was a man that at one time was a man that was a man of honesty and integrity. In verse 51:6 of Psalms, he says, behold, finally Nathan exposes him. God gives David a whole year to come clean, to take ownership, to confess it. But he hid his sin. He did confess his sin. And he says, after he goes through and begins to humble himself and says, create in me a clean heart, take not the Holy Spirit. We know David took ownership. He began to repent from the heart with a broken and contrite heart. And it says in 51:6, he says, he came to the conclusion, he says, behold, you desire truth in the innermost being, or in the inner being. In the hidden part, you will make me know wisdom. What David realized about what God really wants, what God's desire, what God really wanted, is he wanted a man that was innocent, that was not deceitful, and that he had a true inner goodness and honesty woven into the deeper parts of his heart. And he walked with a life of integrity. He walked with speaking truth in his heart towards God, towards himself, and towards other people. During that time when he was being deceitful, Psalms 32, 2-5, David says, how blessed is the man whom the Lord does not impute iniquity, in whose spirit there was no deceit. In whose spirit, the spirit is our heart, it's who we are on the inside. in whose heart, in her innermost being of the heart, that there is no sin, no deceit, no deception, no shiftiness. He says, when I kept silent about my sin, when I tried to hide it from God for a whole year, my body wasted away through my groanings all day long, for day and night, your hand was heavy upon me. My vitality was drained away as with the fever and the heat of the summer. But finally, I couldn't handle that pressure. I couldn't handle the heavy hand. How many have ever felt the heavy hand of the Lord? Yeah. There's another scripture somewhere, I can't remember where it was. It says, blessed is the man whose sin finds him out. But it says right there, is blessed the man that God does not let it get away with being deceitful. That God's hand is so heavy on them that finally they just say, man, I can't handle this. I got to come clean. I got to come clean. I acknowledged my sin before the Lord and my iniquity I didn't hide. In other words, I came out of the closet. I confessed my transgressions to the Lord, and He forgave the guilt of my sins. I mean, there's nothing worse to me than a guilty conscience. I remember growing up in this neighborhood right over here as a kid. We lived in a trailer, and I remember going over where one of those apartments now is, and I found this train set under the guy's trailer. I was probably 6 or 7. And I took that train set, and I went home, and I'm in the living room playing with this train set. My dad walks up and says, boy, where'd you get the train set? And I go, oh, I found it. And for whatever reason, my dad just went on about his business. Now, I know he knew that I didn't find it. He knew. But for whatever reason, he either wanted to give me a chance to come clean or whatever. But I remember God's hand being so heavy on that guilty conscience. I remember I walked around and I was just, at 6 or 7 years old, the hand of the Lord was so heavy on me that I couldn't even function. I couldn't do anything. I had to run to my dad and confess my sin and say, Dad, I can't handle this. Oh, I'm so sorry I did it. And my dad said something. He always said, well, don't you think you ought to take it back? And I was just like, wow. I remember carrying that thing back and I threw it up under there, man. And I just remember the feeling of having a clear conscience, not having any sin in my closet. You know, being able to be clear before God, my Father, myself, and not have to have. And I tell you, for whatever reason, even when I was smoking crack and doing all those crazy things, I wasn't a man that ripped people off and stuff. I don't know what it was. I did everything else, but I just couldn't bring it to myself to really do those things. Now, eventually I started doing those things, and that's when I knew I was turning into a monster. So today, one of my biggest platforms is one of my goals is I try to be a man of integrity. I try to let my word be yes and no, and if I can't do something, I try to give people a courtesy call and say, I can't do this, but I try to be a man of my word. My dad was a man of his word. You know, he was a good man. And I remember my dad being a good man. When he said something, he was going to do it. I remember John 1:47, Jesus said about Nathanael. He said, behold, an Israelite indeed. In other words, that there is a true Israelite. Why was he saying that? Because there is a man that has no deceit or no guile in him. The word deceit means there's no craftiness, no stealth, no hidden agenda. There's nothing in his closet. He's not shifty. What a compliment. What he was basically saying, that Nathaniel boy, he's about as true and as honest and as real and transparent as a man you can get. I like that kind of guy. He tells it like it is. I tell you, sometimes I don't like people like that. Matter of fact, one of my best friends, Ollie Rise, a man that's he just says it like it is, buddy. He throws it out there. But you know what? When he says something, I listen because I know he's a man that's not being a people pleaser. He's not trying to worry about what I think or feel. He's a man that's my true friend. He tells me what I need to hear, when I need to hear, both good and bad. And I know I can trust his judgment. He's a man in whom there is no guile. I really believe that if I had $1 million and I wanted to hide it and come back in 5 years and told him to hide it for me and hang on to it, that when I came back, that $1 million would be there and there wouldn't be a dime missing. That's just the kind of guy he is. And I love that kind of guy. He's not the most spiritual guy in the world, but he's a man that walks with that kind of integrity. And that's why I like to hang around him. Iron sharpens iron. I like to be around men of integrity. So I surround myself with people that I trust. I don't try to You know, there's a lot of pastors, a lot of ministries, different people that I don't really trust. I don't like the way they do business. I don't like they handle things. And that's okay. I don't need to judge that. But I try to surround myself with people that I believe are true men of God and true men of integrity and that handle themselves accurately. You lay down with dogs, you wake up with fleas, don't you? So anyway, if you want to get to the holy hill, you want to live in God's presence, you'll be a person that speaks truth in your innermost being. What we're talking about here, what that really means is truth in the innermost being is a man that examines his life. He brings the Lord into his life. He goes down and he examines himself, does a searching and fearless moral inventory. He assesses his good and his bad, and he evaluates where he's at. He takes ownership of his sins. He acts upon the things that are good. He evaluates himself, and then out of that it says that he walks and he speaks that truth out of his heart. That means he makes a confession. I mean, you know what we believe follows us. When I'm walking in integrity, and there's no dirt on me, there's no accusation, and I'm before God, and I know I'm transformed, then my life is a radiance. My life reflects that integrity. I can walk with a certain boldness and a certain confidence because I know that I'm walking with truth in my heart. I'm not lying or being deceitful towards God, towards myself, or towards anybody else. I walk with a true, honest assessment about where I am in my life. Now, Psalms 15, 1 through 2 says, O Lord, who may abide in your tent? Who may dwell on your holy hill? But he who walks with integrity, works righteousness, and speaks truth in his heart. How many want to go to the holy hill and hang out there? God is searching for men to go to his holy hill. And so 3 of the habits, the disciplines, and the practices that will see that you progressively get there and stay there are these 2 things right there. Amen?
Amen.
All right.